It is an age of darkness and fear. A cruel plague ravages the land, and witchcraft is blamed as the cause. The knights are called to defend the borders. The farmers are called to tend their fields. The clergy are called to guard the souls of their flock. And you? Well, all of these corpses, they're not going to bury themselves, you know. Graveyard Keeper is a simulation and management game where you play a man out of time who has, through mysterious means, supernaturally inherited a parcel of land that is used as the medieval graveyard for a nearby town. Your goal as the literal graveyard keeper is to gather resources and crafting materials, improve the graveyard and maintain its surroundings, as well as digging holes and interring the dead so that you can gather money and eventually uncover the necromantic mysteries of why you are here in the first place. Now, like most simulation games, the core gameplay loop focuses on you traveling around to collect useful resources such as lumber, then bringing them back to your workyard where you can refine them into crafting materials such as planks or frames. These materials can then be used in the game's crafting system, creating helpful tools which will allow you to collect more resources, or new work tables which will allow you to further refine materials, or even finished goods which can be sold in town for a profit. When you're not crafting, you can explore the local countryside or visit the town, where you can interact with the townsfolk, sell and buy items in the shops, or take on quests from the NPCs. However, in addition to all this, you also have a responsibility to the graveyard. On most days, you will receive a routine corpse delivery, at which point your task is to prepare the body, bury it, and decorate the gravesite with tombstones or marble columns or what have you. But dissecting the bodies can also be a profitable side venture. Human bodies are full of blood and viscera that the original owner no longer needs. In fact, certain crafting materials can only be collected in this fashion. For example, human fat makes an excellent substitute for tallow when crafting candles. As the game progresses, new resources and even entire crafting systems will be unlocked. Some of these will come from exploration, and others may be rewards for completing NPC quests. For instance, you will eventually unlock a monster dungeon, which you can wander around in fighting slimes and bats and harvesting them for their valuable monster ingredients. In addition, the game also has a secondary skill system, where as you craft or collect resources, you will accumulate XP points. These points can then be spent in several different skill trees to either unlock passive benefits for your character or new recipes for your work table. As for the positives of Graveyard Keeper, well, for starters, the presentation is very nice. The ambient music and the soundtrack are all very thematically appropriate. The pixel art and the sprites are very well animated, and all of your crafting and inventory information is presented cleanly and efficiently. But really, the more important thing, and especially in a simulation game like this, is that Graveyard Keeper has an excellent crafting system. There are a ton of resources and recipes to collect and unlock. Over the course of the game, you will have access to tree cutting, mining, farming, fishing, brewing, printing, research, and ultimately alchemy. And if I'm being honest, the game doesn't even really come into its own until alchemy is available, because it is the capstone of your crafting pyramid. Alchemy not only allows you to refine some of the best crafting materials in the game, but it also unlocks reanimation. Essentially, about a quarter of the way into the game, you will unlock the secrets of reanimating the dead, at which point you can use the hidden laboratory underneath your chapel to bring zombies back to life from the corpses that you collect. These zombies are effectively this game's version of automation. You can give them specific tasks such as harvesting or transporting materials, and they will then carry out these tasks 24/7, freeing you up to perform other specific actions. And this is frankly one of the best parts of the entire game, being able to create an army of undead minions who will provide you with an endless stream of crafting materials. Ah, yes. Good times. They may be dead, but, well, they can still be useful. On the other hand, Graveyard Keeper, it doesn't exactly have a whole lot of flaws, but it has a lot of, perhaps what I will call, mundanities. Features that are not necessarily problematic, but are either bland or inconvenient at worst. For instance, the combat system is very basic, even compared to other simulation games. You have one weapon, a sword, and the ability to craft potions which will increase your basic stats, and that's it. There are no unlockable skills or alternate weapons. It's 2D, top-down hack and slash combat for the entire game. Another example, the game's customization and placement options are somewhat uneven. For instance, when interacting with the graveyard, you have a lot of options. Where you want to bury people, how you want to decorate their tombstones, whether you want to cremate them or build mausoleums or plant flowers or any one of a number of choices. And yet, you have to be very economical when you're building in your workyard. You have an extremely limited amount of space. All of your work tables and furnaces have to be crammed into a very small space, and you have to decide fairly early on, are you going to go for extra storage capacity or extra production capacity? Because there's not enough room for both. And then other useful buildings like the apiary where you keep your bees can only be constructed in specific locations away from your workyard, requiring extra time and energy just to interact with them. But probably the best example of an inconvenient if not flawed feature is the game's economy. Graveyard Keeper has one of the roughest economies I've seen in any contemporary management game. For starters, it's just a hard system to use. There are almost a dozen different merchants in the entire game, and some of them are only available at specific times and specific days of the week. So if you want to do any particular buying or selling, you often have to plan out ahead. Then there are logistical concerns, where these NPC merchants are located. If you want to go talk to the fisherman, he is on the literal other side of the map from your starting location, which means that you have to spend minutes of game time just walking over there to see him. And even when you unlock the fast travel system, the way that Graveyard Keeper manages its fast travel is to put it on a cooldown timer, so you can only use it for one leg of the journey. And then, on top of that, the game's economy is not all-encompassing. There are a lot of materials and items that just can't be bought or sold. There are some that can't even be utilized in any way. Here's a good example. I crafted these items as part of a storyline quest, but now that that quest is completed, they have no use. I cannot sell them, I cannot eat them, I cannot break them down for materials, I cannot even burn them. My only option is to just trash them from my inventory because they're taking up space, and that's really frustrating. Because the crafting system was a lot of fun. I enjoyed making them, collecting the materials, refining, making sure that they were of the correct quality, but then getting to the end and having leftovers that are basically just dead weight in my inventory, that is underwhelming. And the only reason that this is even important is because one of the game's final missions is to collect a large amount of money. And to get to that point, only to have the game's economy just ignore large chunks of your inventory, that's frustrating. So yeah, in the end, I'd probably give Graveyard Keeper 3 out of 4 stars. Certain parts of it are kind of bland, but it does deliver the crafting and logistical systems which are the cornerstones of these types of simulation and management games. There's about 10% at the beginning where you don't have access to alchemy, that's pretty boring, and 10% at the end when you need to make a lot of money but can't, that's pretty frustrating. But everything in between, crafting items and raising an army of zombies, is really fun. So yeah, I'd go ahead and give it my recommendation as well. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Till next time.